Good morning and welcome to Across the Arts. I am your host, Patrick D. McCoy. I'm so excited about this installment of the MAESTRA series dedicated to women conductors on the podium. Today, I am honored to interview Naima Burrs. Naima Burrs is a violinist. She's a conductor and teacher from Richmond, Virginia. Burrs studied at the University of Northern Iowa, where she received a Master of Music degree in violin performance while serving as a graduate assistant. She also did her undergraduate studies at Virginia Commonwealth University and is currently pursuing her doctoral studies at the geez, why am I fumbling this morning? At Catholic University. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Burrs has performed in master classes led by renowned musicians, several different ensembles. And since I've already fumbled and messed this bio up, we're going to go ahead and jump right in so Naima can fully express herself on this interview. Naima, I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for joining the MAESTRA series.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on this morning. But we're going to get it together. So again, thank you so much for being here. So I want to start right with you
Of course.
in the beginning of this pandemic. Of course, people were teaching and performing and all kinds of things, having all opportunities, musically on the stages and so forth. So when the pandemic initially happened and, they said we're canceling, academic institutions, performance, opportunities, what went through your mind?
I think like everybody was like, what is going to happen? I remember I was actually sitting in a recording session at a studio here in Richmond with quite a few of my friends doing a string section. And we started getting emails like that the symphony was canceled, that the ballet was canceled, that all of these things that were coming up were just being canceled, canceled, canceled. And that was our last gig before the final shutdown of everything. And so after that, we're having like the switch over to virtual, trying to learn how to virtually teach when you've never done that before. For my studies at Catholic, we're learning how to continue on with orchestra and classes, through Zoom and through these virtual settings and platforms. And I just remember wondering, like, I mean, what is going to happen? If this doesn't work, if this is a shutdown for a really long time, like, how do you make a living? How do you continue your studies? And yeah, I think it was just a huge question and just uncertainty all around. So definitely a little bit afraid of what was going to come.
And then, of course, with the pandemic, it was compounded by all of the racial tension going on, of course, with the murder of George Floyd and definitely the murder of Elijah McClain, the young, talented, violinist. So I want to kind of, talk about that because I think it was very important how musicians, in particular string players, really came together and rallied around this tragic event, but it was a showing of solidarity. So talk to, because you got I know that you didn't do it to be featured, but there was a lot of attention, brought, the fact that how you all had the string vigil and things like that. So talk to me about what that meant for you to be a part of such a moving experience.
Well, things were shut down for quite some time. And so when this opportunity came around and we were, my friend Jennifer Arnold from Richmond Symphony partnered up with Sarah Jobin and they decided to put on an event to kind of honor not only Elijah, but all the lives that were lost unjustly. And they gave me a call and asked if I would be available to conduct a piece by George Walker on the program. And of course, yes, absolutely. But on top of the fact that this was such a moving event, this was the first time that many of me and my friends and many musicians were able to get together since everything was shut down. So this was not only, representing and honoring such a tragic, tragic thing, but also we hadn't seen each other in so long. So for that to be our first opportunity to make music together was particularly moving. And the community, I mean, they showed up. It was so many people there. And so many people, showed up to play and sight read. There was no rehearsal, of course. It was just all, when we arrived, that was when we performed. And so it was definitely something that I'll never ever forget. The feeling of, the sounds of all the strings standing, at the Lee Monument, which for all the controversy, all the art all over the statue, and it was overwhelming, I think, for the senses a little bit. I remember definitely having a tear in my eye multiple times, and I think the community enjoyed having the music there. And yeah, it was definitely an event we'll never forget.
Oh my goodness, I'm sure it was powerful. I was, of course, up here on the DC side of things, but of course I was
Sure.
watching the news and things like that. And of course, we know that Richmond and Petersburg, for that matter, those are really Civil War places, the South and all that stuff like that. So I'm sure that, you know, that incident, it really brought some of that stuff forth with the monument and all that. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that. So I actually want to go back now for the main focus of why we're here on the Maestra series. And hopefully I won't fumble like I did in the beginning.
Uh-uh.
My viewers, thank you all so much for being patient with me. I guess, sometimes you have those moments. So now I can't say anything about the news anchors when they come out there, because everybody has a moment and I just had mine, but we're going to get it together. So going back to your childhood, I would say that you have come from a musical family, but talk to me about how did you, individually, Naima Burrs, really kind of hone in on the fact that I'm interested in music. I want to pursue this further.
I don't think it wasn't easy to decide that. I definitely kind of resisted it, and my mom is well known, beautiful soprano and teacher, and well loved, and I think I resisted kind of going into music professionally just because I wasn't sure if I could, actually do well enough to be proud of that. But I remember actually, I started in elementary school. The Richmond Symphony came to the school and they did a presentation on the strings. And I just fell in love with the violin. I was already taking piano lessons before that. But once I heard the string instruments and we were really getting to interact and touch them and ask questions and all of that, I remember coming home and saying, I really want to play that instrument. And of course, my mom was like, of course you can, let's do it. Extremely supportive. And so I did that in elementary school through middle school. And I've always had like really amazing teachers, like they were just so inspirational throughout my whole, childhood and, all of my years of learning. And in high school, I had a teacher, Michelle Bazile. I went to an art school in Petersburg, the Governor's School for the Arts. And I remember going in for my seating audition my senior year. And at this point, I thought I was going to VCU for engineering. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an
Wow.
engineer. I was like, I'm going to be a biomedical engineer. I'm going to make prosthetic arms and all these things. And I was set on that. And I did some engineering camps and things like that at VCU, excuse me. But I remember going in for my seating audition my senior year, and Miss Bazile is like, so what's next? Like having the conversation, like, what are you doing next? I'm like, I'm applying to engineering school at VCU. And she just had this look on her face like, wait, what? And I remember her shutting the door, and she just was speaking to me about like the importance of the arts and the importance of expression and artists like having a place in society, and how the world really needs that. And she, something to the effect that everyone has their own voice, and voices, your specific voice can really reach people and can heal and just offer something very special to the community. And she told me, of course, go do engineering if that's what you want to do, but I think that you have something special to offer, so I would want you to kind of just think about that. And I remember leaving her office and I was just like, you're right. Like I'm probably just being afraid to pursue this, but and she was so inspirational to me, an amazing conductor, and she really just pushed us to be the best that we could be. And so that was the moment that I kind of decided, okay, I think I'm going to go for music at VCU. And my mom was, of course, overjoyed. She tried not to push too much, but I know that she was happy about that as well. And so that's when I decided, and I just decided to pursue that. But I think, a lot of my professors and teachers along the way played a huge part in that.
Well, you learn something new every day, and I would have never known until now that you were interested in pursuing a career in engineering. Now, a lot of times, people always say that, you need to get a real job, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, and things like that. And they kind of snub an arts career because they think, oh, you're going to have you're going to make all this money at these real jobs. So that was interesting that and I'm sure you had the passion, I feel that you have the passion for the engineer, but I just think that was interesting how people be like, okay, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. No, you can maybe sing or play for a hobby. So those are conversations I'm sure that young musicians or aspiring musicians are still having to this day. But it's about following your heart, following, your passion.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about your matriculation at these different institutions. Of course, you mentioned VCU, of course, which is in the heart of the city, an urban campus. So you had that experience. So then for your master's, you went to the University of Northern Iowa. Talk to me about that transition. How did you make that kind of transition, culturally, trying to navigate that from coming from the big city to Iowa?
So I actually ended up in Iowa because my professor there, my violin professor there, Ross Winter, is actually from Richmond and from Chesterfield. So he grew up here, and he, made his way out to Iowa. And I heard that there was, they had some assistantships available, and spoke with him, and so applied. And, it's a great, where you can basically have your school paid for and you have stipend to live and to be out there, and you work like you're a graduate assistant. So I'm his assistant. I can teach, the undergraduates. I can help out planning some of the festivals that they have out there. So you get to do some of that work as part of your agreement there. And so I ended up out there studying with Ross Winter, and it was definitely a culture shock. Definitely. Just way different, and I had never been to the Midwest. And I'm not sure if I would have ever made it out to the Midwest. I'm not sure, so it definitely showed me a completely different lifestyle, but I had just like phenomenal professors out there. And the way in which they're able, that the schools are large, they have a wonderful performing arts facility, they have great budgets, they're able to kind of, really put on wonderful performances. And we just had a lot of great experience out there. So, and I have to say that a lot of the professors out there, though you wouldn't necessarily guess so, it's in the Midwest, were so interested in diversity, so interested in programming works by women, works by Black composers. And a lot of my exposure to that, like in the orchestral world, was really out in Iowa, which was quite surprising to me. The first time that I've actually played a work by a Black composer was during my time in school in Iowa, like
Wow.
in an orchestral setting, not soloistically. But so, these are things that you would never, really guess that would be the case, but that was for me. So it was a fast 2 years out there. It was very cold, a shock for my instrument as well, but I learned a lot out there. So a very valuable 2 years, I would think.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Dr. Darrell Taylor used to teach there when right in the beginning.
Another one of those moments, he did. And one of his CDs is with Robin Guy, who is the accompanist. She teaches, like, she's the professor of accompaniment out there in Iowa. And one of his recordings is with her. And I remember seeing her name on there when I got out to the school. I'm like, wait a second. And I'm like, oh, he taught here as well. And that's where Celeste is out there as well. So, it's just so interesting. So definitely, yeah, that's where he was.
He's definitely one of those kind of connect the dots moments.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I know we kind of talked about your early beginnings and interest in music and things like that. I want to move ahead a little bit now into the MAESTRA series, like, how, I mean, I know kind of how and why, but you're really seriously, you are conducting, don't get me wrong, you are conducting, but you're really forging a path in this arena where you don't have a lot of women conductors, you don't have a lot of Black women conductors. And when I say that you don't have a lot, I should say, clarify and say, not a lot that are really being recognized for their talents, and they should be. But you've just had some major opportunities, and we were kind of talking informally, but now we can talk, on the air. Talk to me about the experiences that your doctoral institution, Catholic, has kind of afforded you, with like the conducting institutes and things of that nature.
So being a Catholic is one just amazing because the professors are awesome. So my professors that I work with are Simeone Tartaglione and Murray Sidlin are the conducting professors currently. And so we work with each of them, but they both have wonderful connections. And with the school being so close in location to, the NSO and the Kennedy Center, we're able to go to open rehearsals. We're able to kind of have those connections as well. So we've had quite a few Zoom meetings with various conductors. We were able to go and observe a rehearsal with Leonard Slatkin, conducting Copeland, and we've had some conductors come into the school to give master classes and give talks, like Gemma New she's from Dallas Symphony, and a female conductor and extremely inspirational. And so just being in such close proximity to the NSO just allows for those opportunities. And it's just tons of learning. And I have to say, through the platforms that we've all learned how to use with Zoom and Google Meets and all of these virtual platforms, we've really been able to connect to people, like in Germany, we're meeting as a class and talking to a conductor who's over there at the time. And, so I think the virtual, although it was a little bit weird at first, it did allow for us to kind of just have more opportunity and to try new things and to connect with people that we might not have had the chance to do. So I'm thankful for that as well. And we've had a lot of good opportunity at Catholic.
You have raised a point, I think, and I've heard this reiterated through previous guests, because you do have the access in a way that, if there was no pandemic, you would be able to just contact somebody in their Facebook inbox or ask for this advice. They would probably be sending you to their manager or their publicist or whoever handles the business. So that whole idea of accessibility during the pandemic, I think that's definitely has been a plus. Absolutely. And I think I saw your picture. It was a group picture with Leonard Slatkin, and I think I was just totally green when I saw it, because I was like, oh my goodness, Leonard Slatkin, he's amazing. Of course, he used to be one of the music directors of the NSO. So that's amazing. So I want to kind of go back to the whole family thing, because of course you mentioned your mother, and of course, feel free if you want to just expound on her. That's great. But she's wonderful. I have my own full circle moments with your mother. She always says, Patrick, you can call me Lisa. I said, no, I can't. You're Dr. Burrs. But of course, your brother, Morgan, he's really forging a way of his own. So talk to me how you all kind of juxtapose your musical styles, because he's with a group called Butcher Brown. Is that the name?
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so then you're on the classical side of things. So how do you all well, first of all, I should ask, have you all ever partnered on anything?
We have done some in recent time. We've, through the pandemic, we've been able to, he has like a nice little studio set up in his room. So I've been able to record some strings for him, for some of his friends. And so we've kind of done some of that. We've always talked about wanting to, do an EP or something together. So hopefully we can do that in the future. But it's interesting. One of the other awesome things that happened with the vigil, the violin vigil that we had, was directly after we finished that, on the other side of the statue, Butcher Brown gave a performance. And so it was really interesting, because we packed up and walked to the other side, and there's my brother performing over there. So it was one of those evenings, again, where it's a sad subject that you're honoring all of these lives that are lost. But to kind of repurpose that circle and repurpose such a terrible, thing, for a positive kind of moment, for the community was awesome. So that was one of our, we weren't performing together, but we were right next to each other. So that was a proud moment for sure.
That's amazing. So now I want to play just a little excerpt of you conducting Mozart,
Okay.
the Eine Nacht music, and just play a little bit of you all bear with us because I had to go share the screen. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's behaving.
You got it?
Behaving. All right, so I think, let's go. Oh, wait a minute, but that's not what I want to share. That's what I want to share. Uh-oh. So of course, that is one of my favorite orchestral pieces of Mozart. And I want to go back because I was reading an article. I want to say it was I don't think it was on Catholic's website. It was about where you consider that to be your first like conducting.
Sure. That was my first time conducting, probably like in a real performance. So that was my first performance at Catholic.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if you see, but it was a big feature on their website. So I was happy to see that. Now I know we talked about different conductors. Now, as far as um, conductors in general, particularly orchestral conductors, who are some of the people that you look to? I know we mentioned Jenna New and we mentioned Leonard Slacken, but who are some of the conductors that you probably look to, currently that you, not that you're modeling after them, but they kind of inspire or inform the work that you are doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, there are really so many. Um, if we're talking about like, you know, old conductors that are no longer living or something, that great inspiration found in people like Leonard Bernstein and Karajan. Some of my greatest mentors currently would be my conducting teacher that was at VCU, Daniel Misick. I think he's one of the most beautiful conductors. He's so elegant, just graceful, and just a wonderful, wonderful conductor. I had a wonderful time doing an internship with Erin Freeman at the
Oh my
Richmond
goodness.
Chorus. Yeah, and she's fantastic. And I'm actually going to be studying with her at the end of the month at Wintergreen Festival, the Music Academy, which I'm really excited about. And James Ross will be there as well. There's so many conductors. current conductors, people like Roger Cox, who are really paving the way, trailblazers, kind of just really strong and are you know just making their own way through the field. And then, of course, people like Marin Alsop, who are creating such awesome opportunity for all conductors, but specifically, women conductors as well. So there's so many. I could never name all of the inspirations, but those would be a few.
And of course, Roderick Cox, he was a former guest of the Maestro series. And of
Sure.
course, those are the men who are conducting the orchestra. But yes, definitely Mary Alsop. And I'm thinking about Joanne Falletta and
Sure.
people like that. But it was the one that really caught my eye, and I hope I do have an opportunity to interact with, and that's Kalina Bovell.
Mhm.
Yeah, so she's making a path too. So I am just so excited. Now you have some things coming up, and I want you to share. So talk to me about Hopkins.
Yes, so I'm so excited. I am going to be the next assistant conductor of the Johns Hopkins Symphony Orchestra. So I'm going to be the assistant to Jed Galen up there at Johns Hopkins University. This was something that I actually interviewed for before the pandemic hit, and I was really excited for it when I found out that I got it, and then everything shut down. So that was definitely sad, but it's nice to see that things are opening back up and continuing, and I'll still be able to make that connection. And I've heard such awesome things about their students, and Maestro Galen is really wonderful, and he's kind of taken me under his wing, and I'm excited to learn from him. So um, I'm really looking forward to that opportunity.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's fascinating. So let's kind of go back, because you're, of course, you're an accomplished violinist, and you both solo and ensemble playing, but you also teach. So talk to me a little bit about Virginia State University. That's a connection for us, because we're both on the faculty faculty of the institution. Of course, my alma mater, and your mother was my teacher at Virginia State. So it's just amazing, like you just pointed out, just an amazing full circle. So just to go back to the whole element of the pandemic and teaching applied students and things of that nature, what were some of the things that you really had to learn or to dig deep for, to make sure that you were even productive, for lack of better words, to teach the applied violin students?
Oh man, so I think everybody struggled with that, transition to virtual, in the music world, simply because nothing really sounds like it sounds in person. The delays you're dealing with, not being able to physically, like things that would work so much easier if you could, place your student's bow in the right part, or place their hand in the correct position so that they can feel that. Certain things that just go so much faster in person, you're having to explain and use more words to kind of get the point across. It was definitely a struggle, but the students were up for the challenge, I think, and they were able to kind of push through. And we had so many meetings as faculty. Okay, how does this software work? Like, how do we do this? What is the best way to go about this? What microphones should we use? What cameras are the best? So I think everybody was just working together to try and, to make it work. Violin is probably, I'm thinking, a little bit easier than voice or something. But still, it's definitely a challenge to not be in person, to really hear the sound of the instrument. So much of what you're doing, you're informed by the way that it sounds, to then figure out what you need to fix. So I think that was the biggest hurdle to come over. But I think we made it work, and we figured it out together. So with the support of all the faculty and the students working together, we did all right.
So, so what is it like? People, like we already said, like people know you because your mother, and I think I referenced to you just off camera, the fact that I remember very clearly when your mother, and first I gotta hit on your mother, because
Okay.
I always Matter of fact, I just recently said, I was like, my former teacher, Lisa Edwards-Burrs, she's like, the Kathleen Battle of Richmond. She's glamorous. And when she does these recitals, I was sharing with the person that, the concerts are always full. Like you can guarantee that she's going to give you a gown and all of that kind of stuff. But very distinctly, I remember, I want to say it was the recital with, at Chris Martin's church. And you were turning pages for the recital. And I think your uncle, Leslie Burrs, was playing the flute. So I think it's just neat how all of these relationships kind of combine, and you're still quite young. So what is it like being one of the younger faculty members, and not just in Virginia State, but just the younger person in the circle? In general, what has been the reception of your older colleagues, whether it's in the classroom or in the musical situations?
I think everyone's been extremely welcoming. It's always a nice connection to have. So many people do know my mom, and I'm an extension of her, proudly so. And I always look to my older faculty members for advice and guidance, and so many of them are my mentors as well. So it's always fun. I've always worked in places that people have known my mother. And I actually worked some at Longwood as an adjunct professor where I was working next door to my mother. So that was hilarious because, if I had questions, she's there to answer, but we were also able to give faculty recitals together. And, it's a lot of fun. And my mom asks me questions now that I'm older as well. And I ask her a ton of questions. And I think it's a wonderful, mother-daughter relationship, but also working relationship. And she inspires me to, hey, you really need to do this recital. You need to get on, she's always pushing me, and my biggest motivation. So, all the faculty have been wonderful. So I think also as a younger faculty member, sometimes you're looked at to understand the things that are happening now and how to work this technology. And it's awesome to be able to, to help Dr. Savage with whatever technology she might need, or to assist in that way, because they assist me in many ways. So I think it's great.
And that's a shout out to Dr. Karen Floyd.
It is.
Amazing soprano faculty member. Just adore her. But it was something with the Zoom. What was the thing that I know. Excuse me. I know what it was, because I think it was the notifications or something.
Participants entering, right? Yeah. And the little ding every time. I know. But yes, it's so funny, how funny to be on the I grew up knowing Dr. Savage as one of my mom's closest friends and collaborators. And it's just so funny to be serving with her on faculty, and Mrs. Edmonds, and, so many people I've known when I was little. So it is another one of those full circle moments, and it's awesome.
That is amazing. So we talked about, your early beginnings, you on this trajectory as a conductor, but I want to go to the other part of that, is the fact that you are a gifted violinist. And so what I want to do is I want to play a little bit of the Elgar Salut d'Amour and then come back, because I have a little question that I want to probe your mind with. So Hopefully this will work. There we go. I think this is right. Share. Uh-oh, where did it go? Oh, here it is. You have to work all this stuff out. I need to get somebody in the background. Gotta find some money. We'll get there one day. All right, so let's do I think this is gonna be right. was amazing, Naima. I want to go back to, of course, that was you playing the El Gar de Salud d'Amour. I want to go back to, I know we kind of talked earlier about your early music beginnings and things like that. But when was it that you started like consistently knowing you had to run home and prepare because you had to go to a violin lesson? So what was that exact age?
When I needed to prepare, like for
No,
violin.
like when you started taking violin lessons as a child, what was the exact age? I'm not.
I started strings like in the school, like in fourth grade. I don't think I
Okay.
started lessons. I did strings first for a bit. I don't think I started lessons maybe until the sixth grade, probably.
Wow. So you were kind of like a late bloomer, so
Definitely,
to
I
speak.
definitely started late. Definitely, for sure. I did a little bit of piano before. Didn't take it seriously really, and then
What is
just
that book like the John Thompson piano course or something like that?
right,
Okay.
just being rebellious. But I think probably started in the sixth grade. My mom would correct me. I think that's right though.
Oh wow. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I did start late though. Many of my friends, started violin at two in private lessons, 2 and 3. So I was more like 10.
So to go back to where I was going with, the reason I interjected that clip. So, a lot of times people, well, I should say, generally speaking, and I'll put myself in there too, though. What about think of, whatever. But my thing is like sometimes we box ourselves into certain things. But I want to ask you, as a violinist, there's certain things that you think about the mindset, and then there are certain things that you think about as a conductor. So how do those things work together? Like how do you kind of I don't know if separate them is the word, but how do you, I guess, how do you compartmentalize those things so they are like a benefit, to whatever it is that you're doing musically?
Yeah, so I guess as a violinist, it's really interesting because everything that I heard as a child was really, voice and voice with orchestra. We would listen to operas and we would, I'd be with my mom as she's performing. And so the way that I approach the violin, I think, is very much like the voice, like in terms of like line. And that's probably what's most important to me and what's most on my mind. And I think that way when I'm, kind of analyzing scores and deciding like what I want from whatever the ensemble is. But I think that they work hand in hand. I think that conductors, oftentimes you can kind of tell which instrument they're from. So, if a conductor is a percussionist, their focus and understanding of rhythm is so precise, right? If they're a strings player, their idea of line and connection, brass, the power and the understanding of what the orchestra or the members need in the back of the orchestra where the brass is sitting. So I think they work hand in hand. Yeah. So I don't think I see it as much as kind of compartmentalizing them as much as hopefully they kind of influence and inspire each other.
But I'm sure you have an advantage, you being a string player. So I'm sure that there are sounds in those strings that are like very keen, like very, you can really
Sure, sure.
focus on it. Because I know, yeah, I would imagine so. But just as we begin to wrap up, first of all, thank you so much for joining me for the Maestro series. It is such a joy to have you here. If people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
So I have a website that's just my name, www.naimaburrs.com. And you can see some articles and pictures and stuff like that that's on there. I also have an Instagram account that you can follow at Nima Nima and then 4 1 1 1 1 1. So those are easy ways to, and on the website you can send a message and it'll come to my email if you want to actually reach out. But those are probably the easiest ways to connect.
Oh, and so your mom is on here listening. Shout out to Dr. Burrs, and she says that you were correct
Hey,
about this.
mom! Yay! Did it right.
So as we wrap up, I do want to ask you this question. Of course, I shared the clip of you conducting the Mozart, or and of course you've done other things where it was a part of, your studies and things like that. But if you had, well, you're going to have the opportunity, let me just say that. When you finally get the chance to plan your own orchestral concert, you conduct a symphony orchestra, and they give you full reign to select your composers for the program, what do you think some of those composers would be, some of your dream pieces that you've always, heard, and you may not have had the opportunity to conduct the music of those composers? Who do you think would make the list?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think my most favoritist composer of all time would be Richard Strauss.
Mm.
We share the same birthday, so I
Whoa!
feel
Oh my
yes,
goodness!
I found that out and I was like, oh my gosh. So, um, honestly, whenever I say like there's, the suite from De Rose and Cavalier for orchestra or the four last songs, those are really my two biggest things that I wish to conduct. But there's so many pieces that I will be happy and hope to conduct one day. I would love to conduct some of Florence Price's music, William Dawson, some of the greats, just those really masterpieces that don't get played enough, and I hope that I can be part of the group that brings them to light, really in a real way where people really pay attention. So there's so many pieces, but those would be a few.
Oh my goodness! And that trio from the Rosa Cavalier, my goodness.
Exactly.
So you
Oh,
can so you can get your mom to sing
there
one
we
of
go.
those.
I told her, please, please, please.
That would be amazing. So just as we wrap up, as I mentioned, the fact that of course you are a native of Richmond, and you've had interactions like with the Richmond Symphony and things like that. Have you, I think you kind of already said this, but I guess I'm trying to see, you had mentioned Jen Arnold, who's amazing. And so I'm just wondering, do you ever foresee any opportunities where you can maybe, when things open all the way back up, of having some opportunities to perform with the orchestra, even if it's in the section, or, have you ever?
I hope so. Now that things are opening back up, I've been asked to play. I've just been out of town for it. So, hopefully as they start to expand the sections again, we can get in as some of the sub violinists to be a part of the section again. That would be wonderful. And shout out to Jen Arnold. She is fantastic, and we love having her here. And she's, kind of a big sister mentor for me as well. And I'm loving being able to connect with her and have the opportunity to work with her more, I hope.
Just my final question, I can talk, but the final question is this, as you are a mentor to aspiring conductors, and particularly, a young female conductor, or just conductors in general, what are some of the things that you think that a conductor must have to be successful in this field?
Um, I think curiosity, just wanting to know more and to look deeper and deeper and deeper in the score. I think that's kind of how I got on the path of wanting to be a conductor, is just like sitting in the orchestra. I'm playing my part, but I hear something like in the trombones. What is that? What does that look like? Where's the score? I need to see. Like I need to understand what that is, and just wanting to understand more, but also the idea of wanting to connect people and not being in charge of people and, being a dictator, but like really being kind of the connection between the sections and, allowing the orchestra and the players to be the best that they can be. So knowing what that is and knowing what tempo will work best, what, dynamics help to create the sounds in the orchestra that will create the best or produce the best final product. So I think curiosity and also just the idea of community and wanting to connect people.
And I just want to add to that, you got to know that theory. Like you kind of alluded to just now, you have to be able to hear, what's going on. So you look at that score, you have to be able to know, okay, if the trumpets are doing this, and this
Right.
group is supposed to be doing this, and the strings supposed to be doing this. I mean, you have to know what's going on. So that is so true. It is so true. So Naima, I just want to say thank you so much. It has been a joy. You've been a breath of fresh air.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and to be with you.
And I
Thank you.
apologize for the opening intro, but I hope that we made up for it.
Oh, come on.
That we made
No.
up for it in the beginning. But again, thank you so much for being here on the Maestro series. So again, I am your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and you've been listening and watching Across the Arts. Now, don't miss next week. Please save the date for July the 16th at 11 o'clock a.m. as I interview the 10th president of the University of Richmond, Dr. Ronald A. Crutcher, who is a phenomenal administrator, but a fabulous cellist. And so I'm going to have the opportunity to basically talk to him and his time in Richmond and the fact that how he has juxtaposed a career both in administration and as a celebrated performer. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So again, I am your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and you've been listening to the Maestra series. Thank you so much, Naima.